everyone, it's Costa here, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of fantastic garden news. For those of you that don't know, the town of Millthorpe in central western New South Wales, tucked up at close to 1,000 metres above sea level, they have their regular Millthorpe Garden Ramble in spring. Well, this year, autumn has been spectacular because it's been so cold. The autumn colours are off the Richter scale. And as a wonderful bonus for gardeners and just people who love nature everywhere around the country, they've put together 5 videos around gardens, plus the streetscapes, and even one in the museum, sharing a little bit of not just the history of the town, but more so what's going on this spring with all of the autumn colour. The festival itself will be taking place again this year on the weekend of the 6th and 7th of November, so mark it down in your diaries. But in the meantime, jump on the Millthorpe Garden Ramble website or their Facebook page, and you can watch some of these spectacular autumn videos and appreciate the efforts and work of more than 100 volunteers that have been working away at this Millthorpe Garden Ramble for more than 17 years. There's even a donate button if you want to contribute a little bit towards not only the streetscape beautification, but in recent years they've been working on a community garden which is providing a wonderful place for all of the local schools to come. Any of the money raised will be going towards not only beautifying the town with lots more gardens, but also to the Country Education Foundation for students from rural areas to take their education to the next level. But either way, jump on, enjoy these wonderful videos, and put some comments up about what you think. Congratulations to all the volunteers and all the people of Millthorpe, and can't wait to see the Ramble on again this year in 2021 on the 6th and 7th of November. Go well, everyone.
Welcome to my garden. I'm Anne Harrison and I live in Victoria Street, Millthorpe, and run the Millthorpe Meditation Centre. It's an old garden and it's ripe for me because I didn't know how to garden when I arrived here. I'd lived all my life in apartments, and I thought in my old age I needed something that was naturally giving me some exercise and providing me with beauty. And that's what I've tried to create on the bones of an old-fashioned garden. The autumn colours, firstly the flowers fade, but I do have yellow crocuses. So they're bright. They herald actually the beginning of autumn. But the tree that we're sitting under now also becomes a brilliant, brilliant yellow. So the whole canopy is fantastic. When the light comes through it, I'm bathed in golden light, and it's just a joy to watch. This year, as opposed to the last few years, the garden has been watered well during summer. So the plants are not stressed as they have been in the last 4 or 5 years. The plants are healthy, they're flowering. I've even got an orange on my dwarf orange tree. Well, I've got 3, but that's a miracle. And I'm waiting for the colours to turn. It'll be lovely. I've got this sycamore maple, I've got an oak, I've got an ash tree. I realised after about 2 or 3 years that I had a preference for pinks. So pinks have gone to light pink, to there's a gaura that's a dark sort of fuchsia pink. There's lots of different salvias. And since I didn't know anything about gardening, nothing, when I arrived, I had to study. So what I did was find out that the things that, firstly, they had to be perfumed, then they had to be pretty, and then they had to be hardy and healthy. So salvias is where it's at, and the salvias that are behind me now and at the outside of the house, they're reds, they're purples and mauves, they're pinks, and the foliage in different places is silver. So I didn't realise that that was my palette until I was here a few years, and now I'm going to try and get some more yellows and colours that pop, but I need a softness. I like a softness, so pinks and greys is good. The meditation studio is recycled from the old shed that was there, so that's grey corrugated iron, and what goes with grey is other grey foliage, pinks, and softness. I think for me it's a reflection of me. While I can be harsh and hard, I find comfort in gentleness and softness.
Hello, I'm John,
And I'm Lyndall.
and welcome to our garden at Rocklea at Millthorpe. We've been here for about 22 years. It was a relatively established cottage garden when we came here, and we've extended that and just maintained it.
We've tried very hard to maintain the rigour of this garden because our previous owner had worked very hard to establish a beautiful garden with quite an extensive surround, so it's got big trees around. So the garden is a garden in two parts. The old part was basically established, and of course, as gardens always do, they change and morph, which they have now. But we extended the old house about 12 years ago, and we maintained the old garden, and then around the other side we created a new garden, which is mainly made up of natives. The garden is full of rocks, and you will see them as we roam around, and for that reason the garden beds meander and they're all odd shapes, and you'll see a lot of evidence of good big basalt rocks. The soil, of course, is rich and beautiful soil. The old garden, which is the very enclosed garden, is very much a typical cottage garden. It's got a beautiful range of perennials that come up and surprise us on a constant basis. This being autumn, which is my favourite time of the year, we've got quite a few bulbs. We've got crocus, we've got nerines all in flower. We've even got some cyclamens that hopefully you'll see just popping up. So the garden is full of surprises. We've got bulbs coming up now, and they are probably jonquils with a few daffodils now. We've got some big established trees. There's ash, there's this holly, which is just beautiful and in flower, and the birds love it, and so we have lots of little holly plants everywhere. We've got an elm, golden elm, we've got another ash, there's the crab apples, we've got quite a few silver birches, and along one of the borders we've got a row of maples which are just about to come to their fore. Around the back of the house we've got 3 rather large sequoias, and they're coming into colour as well. And then around the back of the garden we've concentrated mainly on natives. We've built a rather large rock wall, and it's terraced, and then we've got bottlebrush, we've got correas, we've got banksia, and surprisingly a lot of them are out in flower at the moment to complement the autumn colours. This year has been an interesting year. We came out of drought, probably one of the biggest droughts definitely since we've been here, and then we had good rains over the end of January, February and into March, and now it's been very dry. That's affected, I think, the slowness of some of our trees in their turning, of colour, but also we've got a crabapple that's decided to flower. So plants are very confused at this stage. In the garden you'll see, of course, the background of green, which I love, but you will see rich yellows, particularly the ashes. We've got a beautiful deep red of a dogwood. We have the oranges of the maples. There's one just near a little pond, which is just a brilliant orange at the moment. So a huge array of colours that you'll see in our garden.
My favourite part of the garden is probably the colour that we get for not only in autumn, where we get all the lovely autumn colours, but in summer then we get a lot of, and spring we get a lot of the flowers and the plants flowering. So we get the colours just keep changing through the year, and it does make it a magnificent show.
One of my favourite areas of the garden is the wandering paths, and when I walk these wandering paths I often reflect on Robert Frost's poem, The Road Less Travelled. The road diverged in the woods. I took the one less travelled, and that made all the difference. And I think just being a cool climate garden, which was totally out of our experience, has been very much a road less travelled for us.
My name's Jackie Irvine and I am the secretary here at the Golden Memories Museum in Millthorpe. As you can see, it's already starting to turn and we get beautiful golds along Park Street with the plane trees as they turn to their autumn colours and fall on the floor and come into the museum, and we have carpets of leaves at the time. This beautiful chestnut tree here turns a lovely golden colour before it also sheds its leaves. We have some trees further down that actually turn lovely red colours. So we have the whole range of autumn colours here at the museum during autumn. The museum has been operating here in Millthorpe since 1965, so well over 50 years now. And in the distance behind me, you might be able to see the tall grey building. It was the first building that operated as the museum, and we've expanded over that 50-odd year period to include at least 9 buildings. And we're open every weekend from currently 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're also open every day during school holidays, but we accept lots of group bookings, and we're quite flexible in our opening hours as we have members, volunteer owned and operated we are. We have members living here in Millthorpe who are able to come up and show people around as long as they've made contact with us and asked for some sort of opening. So very flexible, and we absolutely love to show the history, social and agricultural history of the town and the district. The museum and the people who volunteer are very involved in the entire Millthorpe community, and this weekend we have local artists and artisans who are displaying their work in what we call our Pioneers Gallery, which was the old convent school that we took over in the 1970s, and it's open for everybody to come and have a look, purchase things that they would like. We do things like that on a regular basis, have special days, open days, sometimes including our blacksmith shop operating, sometimes pieces of our equipment are open and operating, and you can be very lucky and strike it on a day when there's lots and lots of activity here.
In autumn we have the grapevines on the side of the house that turn a beautiful crimson and last for best part of a month. And then as well as that, we have fuchsias that are still blooming, lovely red and purple. We have lots of different roses that are coming through their last blooms of
blooms.
Yeah, and we have some windflowers that are still flowering over the fish pond. So in another month, the claret ash and the golden ash will be much more striking. The golden ash will turn a really bright gold, and the claret ash will turn a lovely reddish purple, and before their leaves drop. And the wisteria will stay green, but then eventually all their leaves will drop until the spring, and you'll get the spring flush. When we moved here 30 years ago, the garden was very bleak and had a lot of weeds, blackberry, and not much at all. Hardly any trees. And so we've planted the trees.
We have big natives right at the back.
Yeah, we've got gums down the back, big gums at the very back.
They were planted in the first year or so that we were here.
Yeah, we planted.
And so they're huge, and they attract the number of and variety of birds that we get into our backyard now is amazing.
The vine is planted right at the top of the veranda here, and a single vine has been trained all around the side of the house and all around the front as well. And basically, from the spring, it produces new fronds. We prune it in the winter, and then it produces new fronds, and it protects the inside of the house through the summer from the western sun, which can get very hot. And then of course it's beautiful to look through, whether it's green in the summer or it's red in the autumn. Yeah. And then in the winter we need the warmth, so it's got no leaves, and we prune back the little fronds and take it back.
We'll prune it right back to the major stem up there.
We've got quite a lot of vegetables growing in the vegetable garden that we pick from time to time, so that's very nice.
I think one of the important things is that we get a lot of pleasure from it. You know, I mean, it's the thing about gardening is that you use lots of different muscles in gardening, and that's a benefit.
Yes. But it's very good. It was very good during the lockdown, because you could be out here gardening. You're not seeing anybody, but you're in a nice space and you're doing things, and then you can see it come to fruition in the next little while. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
Hi, we're Sophie and Bruce Reynolds, and this is our garden at Foxfield.
So welcome to our garden. I hope you enjoy the autumn colours that we're going to show over the next few minutes as we take a tour around the Foxfield garden.
At Foxfield, because we're at a very high altitude, we get a very broad range of seasons and very definite seasons. So at the moment we're in autumn, obviously, with the golden trees, some starting to go to reds and oranges. In spring it's very, very bright green, and then it starts to yellow off a bit in summer usually, although this year, because it's been an unseasonably wet season, we actually had the green all the way through the year, and the rabbits have been enjoying that a great deal.
So the beauty of this garden is it's got colour 12 months of the year. There's something flowering in the middle of winter. As in, we've got trees here that flower in July, and you walk down in the garden, you'll hear the buzzing of bees, and you go, wow, something's actually happening. So there's new life and happenings 12 months of the year. And at this time, you know, you'll see, for example, the canna lilies that are out in flower still as we move into autumn, and the different colours from the yellows through to the reds. There are a few other flowers we've got out. And of course, as Sophie mentioned, the autumn colours and how our autumn colours change, and they change daily. As in, a tree today can be green, tomorrow yellow, and the day after red, as it goes through the deciduous process of losing its leaves. So yeah, it's really a colourful and ever-changing garden here at Foxfield. We also have liquid ambers. At the moment, the ones closest to us are beautiful green. You'd sort of think we're in the middle of summer at the moment, but then all of a sudden in a week or two they'll change. We've got the birches, and they've nearly lost all their leaves at the moment, and a heap of other trees. The London plane trees are just starting to turn yellow, and a variety of trees, but also our roses are starting to lose some of their leaves, but they've still got blossom on them. And so this garden just evolves. It just grows and changes day by day. And as you'll see if you go back and look at the spring presentation that we did, as in this garden has changed a lot just in that 6 months since this last video was taken of Foxfield.
We're getting all those autumn end of harvest vegetables in, so we're getting the last of the tomatoes, which are very sweet and very ripe, and we're getting the last of the raspberries through, so I'm making jam out of those. We've got through some apples as well, and it's just that end of season stuff. The rhubarb's looking great, all of those really good kitchen vegetables that I use all the time.
It's the crops that we have 12 months of the year, plus the flowers that we have and the colour that we have. So it's just an enjoyable garden, and so there's no one individual section of the garden. It's the whole garden that you walk to a new section and you go, wow, something's changed, or something's evolved, or something is developed, grown since I was last here. So that's an enjoyable moment for me.
We're just starting to get our watermelons. We've, at 950 metres, our watermelons ripen very late. So they come in at this time of the year. So we're just starting to get our homegrown watermelons right now. And our pumpkins are just starting to ripen up as well.
So it's a vegetable, fruit and ornamental garden. It's a comprehensive, as well as our chooks, and that we try, and we're not totally self-sufficient, but we grow a lot of our own product here.
I'm Sue Rogan, this is Ian Rogan, and we're here at Millthorpe Garden Nursery. We live here on the acreage, and welcome to our garden.
Where we've lived for the last 10 years in a beautiful garden established roughly 20 years ago. So Wayne and Kirsty Jeffrey built the house and began to establish the garden about 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago. And so there's a boundary planting of deodar cedars and some magnificent established red oak trees that are part of the structure of the garden, and then a collection of beautiful Japanese maples which Wayne and Kirsty planted in the garden, quite a unique connection of Japanese maples. In fact, a visiting garden group once said to me, gosh, this is your dinosaur garden. So there are two trees in one part of the garden that are amongst the oldest known living trees in the world, the ginkgo, which originates from China, and the Australian native Wallamai pine. Both of these plants have fossils going back 200 million to 270 million years. And so, yes, they are quite a unique collection of ancient trees and very rare trees.
One of the things that we love about the garden is the 4 seasons and the distinct seasons. So the features that come through in spring and autumn are truly amazing. And so this year the colours have started, and you'll see in the clip that there are varying oranges, yellows, greens, reds, which are quite stunning. And as the weather cools off, they'll become quite more deeper in colour.
With clearly wetter conditions in 2020 than we have had in the previous 2 or 3 years, so there's been extremely strong and lush growth right across the garden in both shrubs and trees. We'll wait and see whether the autumn colour this year is as bright as it can be. Obviously frosts are approaching, and it will soon be, I hope, reaching its maximum autumn colour.
So living here and working here is a real bonus. We both came from 9 to 5 working backgrounds, and now this was supposedly a transition to retirement. We live here, we put our nose out the door. Ian's the son of a dairy farmer, so he's normally up around 5, and he's out there probably talking to the plants. We have many jobs to do, and there's never a day without one of us spending some time doing something in the garden.
Apart from talking to the plants, obviously watering both the garden and the nursery plants is a key issue. That was a concern for us through those 2-3 very dry years. Fortunately, we had good secure water supply here, but nevertheless the garden did suffer during those dry years. It's now much more refreshed. One of the nice things about having a plant nursery business here within our garden is that when people come in and are interested to think about buying a particular tree or a hedging plant, it's really helpful to be able to bring them up to the garden and show them a mature form of the particular tree or hedge that they're interested to buy.
I think a good garden has interesting spots to walk to and to look around corners to find, and one of the things I did want was the odd room. Many gardens in the region have this as a feature, and I think it allows you then to design to purposefully design the use of that space and then decorate it as necessary with plants or trees or shrubs or pots.
And there are some of those rooms, as you call them, that are sunnier than other areas, and we've been attempting to, grow more roses, for instance, in the sunny areas. There are other parts or other rooms in the garden that are very much a microclimate, and that's where things like Japanese maples and some of the other more sensitive plants really flourish, where there's that microclimate.